In business today, three things to know. First, retail investors jump into a hot market, but is it too late for them not to get burned? Then, more than chocolate, how Nestle, the world's largest food company, is investing in emerging markets, farmers, and community development. And meet the YouTube stars, how people who you have never heard of are killing it online. Arise Xchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz, back in New York. U.S. markets drifted higher Tuesday with the S&P 500 briefly crossing over 1,900. Disappointing April retail sales were offset by a rise in sentiment among small business and something we call momentum of a market just wanting to go higher. We'll talk in a moment if retail investors should jump in or if they are at risk of being suckered into the market. Let's take a look at the final numbers. A record on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closing at 16,715, up 20 points. The S&P 500 just off its highs for the day at 1897.45. The Nasdaq down about 13 points. And stocks we're watching today. Facebook is looking for office space in Beijing 5 years after the Chinese government banned its site in the country. The office is reportedly struggling to handle high demands from local companies now eager to advertise on the social network. Facebook closing at 59.83 unchanged. Green Mountain Coffee seeing yet another rise this week, a week after positive earnings news. Coca-Cola raised its stake in Green Mountain to 16%, becoming the company's largest shareholder ahead of the release of their joint cold brewing machine. Green Mountain closing up in 8 and change to 119. And Boeing's 787 manufacturing plant in South Carolina has reduced behind scheduled aircraft work by nearly 3/4, stabilizing production and suggesting that the world's biggest plane maker is getting past problems that backed up production earlier this year. Boeing up 85 cents. And commodities, gold pulling back $1.70, oil up over that $100 a barrel mark. Now, with more on the markets and the record-setting pace is John Manley. He's Chief Equity Strategist with Wells Fargo Funds Management, back here on Arise Xchange. John, welcome.
Thank you.
Our little graphic behind us says May market madness. What is propelling stocks all of a sudden higher again?
Well, it's not madness. I mean, it's the fundamentals are still pretty good. The earnings numbers continue to rise. The Fed remains accommodative. The valuations aren't bad. I think Ukraine was probably overhanging things for a while, but it seems to be getting better at this point.
And even though we are getting sort of this patchwork of economic news, overall, people are thinking that we're going higher, that the economy has firmed up.
I think they're thinking that the Fed won't stop pushing until the economy is better. So you have the Fed at your back, and the Fed, I won't say they create money, but they push money towards the economy.
They create money, don't they?
They can and they don't. You and I create money, but
Okay.
the Fed push. In this case, the Fed is pushing money across the system towards the economy. It flows through the capital markets, and that's what tends to make them go higher.
Oh, we teased at the top of the show the concept of retail investors, and there's a series of articles out now that retail investors are now ramping up their investment in the market. Is that good news for the market, or does that show a sign of when retail investors get in that the bull market is almost over?
You know, that's what professionals like to say so they can hide their own poor performance. I'm a retail investor. You're a retail investor. We're not stupid. I mean, well, there's some disagreement on me, but there is a lot of reason to believe the retail person, the man, the woman going in is not the last person going in. They have to be convinced. They suffered a lot 4 or 5 years ago, but there's still money out there behind them.
Okay, so any sense and any talk that the old, I think it's the old Joe Kennedy line when his shoe...
Bernard Baruch, yeah.
Okay, right, that when he was talking about buying stocks, that he knew he was time to get out.
You know, this is all very subjective, but I don't get that kind of feel. Nothing like I got in 1999 where I couldn't go to a Little League game without being accosted about $2 stocks. I think individuals are interested in the market. They're more interested than they've been for some time. I think, however, that's very fragile. Take the market down 5, 6, 7% as we did back in January. People tend to move towards the sideline.
And we have to remember they got burned. So maybe the return to the market is simply a delayed reaction, sign of waiting to see how we're doing.
there's this old saying that bull markets climb walls of worry.
Yeah.
And I think that wall of worry is still out there. There's still this belief that it really can't work out. There's still this belief that sooner or later, one of these days, we'll all have to pay for the excesses of the last 20 years. That's what it was like in the early 1980s, late 70s when I came into the business, except then it was inflation, now it's deflation. I still think there's that skepticism out there. I don't think people are 100% convinced.
U.S. Secretary of Treasury Jack Lew right now is in China. What is he hoping to wring from the Chinese?
I'm not sure exactly what you can get from them. Like us, they're a sovereign nation. They have their own interests at heart. I think that there's some concern that they want the markets to be a bit more transparent. They want their currency set at what the U.S. thinks is a more proper level.
Explain to us what they're doing with the currency. They're accused of manipulating it, and why we think it's important to tie it towards more market forces.
Well, without saying whether they are or not manipulating it, the cheaper your currency, the cheaper your products are in the world market. But as you sell more products, as your economy gets better, there's a tendency for the currency to rise and all becomes very self-correcting. There's an argument that the Chinese have deliberately kept their currency low in order to make them more competitive in the world market. I think they're competitive in the world market as it is. I think we are competitive. I think every country talks about their currency going higher for political reasons, sure. And everyone sort of hopes a little bit that they get an edge by being a little bit weaker than someone else. So I don't think he's going to get anything more than window dressing from them. That's just the nature of the way they are and the way we are.
Finally, there was some interesting news about small businesses today here in the United States having more optimism about the future. Well, a little bit of a change for small businesses. Sure. What do you think is driving that?
They're the ultimate feet on the ground. They're seeing what's going on. You walk into my store, you don't walk into my store. You buy something, you don't buy something. And I think the optimism is just reflecting the fact that things are finally starting to get better.
That's a really interesting point, because small businesses aren't out there with market research and focus groups. They are living the story every day.
If you don't sell the product that day, you don't pay the rent the next week. It's a very tricky hand-to-mouth business. They really understand what's going on. They're probably the best, most sensitive feelers we have.
Okay. John Manley, Chief Equity Strategist with Wells Fargo Funds Management. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. And coming up, how Nestle is helping farmers make better chocolate. You're watching Arise Exchange.
If I was building my own news network, first thing I think I'd want high-quality reporters, very educated, intelligent people.
Hello, I'm Francesca Maxime.
I'm Julian Phillips.
I'm Wendy Gillette.
I'm Sophia Songhai.
I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey. Thank you for joining us here in New York City.
I would like to see more people of color represented in high positions in media.
We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well.
People need to understand the problems that are going on in the community are much closer than we actually think they are.
Kayla Phillips is one of the shoppers who is suing Barney's, and she is here with her attorney. What is it that you want from them?
Not to judge every African-American person that comes in your store.
I don't think that television news in the United States reflects the diversity of the world. I don't think it does a great job of even reflecting diversity of the United States.
When you are watching TV, you don't really see a lot of different cultures. There are plenty of other places that people might not even know about.
We are living in a global culture, and you cannot hide news that is happening when there's so much social media.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
Nestle may be the world's largest food company, but it is involved in a local effort throughout the world to improve the quality of products and profits of farmers. Janet Voute is the Vice President of Public Affairs globally for Nestle and joins us now to talk about this. You're here in New York to talk about the shared values platform, and I'll ask you that in a moment. But I want to start talking about emerging markets, because that's a lot of what we cover here. I read an interesting statistic that by the end of this decade, Nestle's looking at half of its revenue from the emerging markets.
Absolutely. Well, I think you have to realize Nestle has operations in almost all countries in the world, and at last count, we sell products in all countries of the world. And so, yes, we can talk about how much of our revenue is in the Americas, is in Europe, is in Asia, Oceania, and Africa, the latter being about 30% of sales, and certainly certainly rapidly growing.
Okay, you're here to talk about shared value. What is the concept of shared value? What does it mean?
Well, in fact, the terminology creating shared value was born at Nestle, and it comes from a deeply held belief that for a company to be successful over the long term and create value for shareholders, it must create value for society. That means you really integrate a deep understanding of social issues into your business strategy and into your operations.
And your partners are really the people on the ground level, the farmers.
Yes.
It's a little bit different than, let's say, an oil exploration company, for example, that has the land. You really need farmers to get the product. And how do you work with the farmers to do that and to improve their lives?
Well, farmers are essential to our success, so their success is intimately linked with our own. And let me just illustrate with the cocoa plan. What do we do? There are really three parts of the cocoa plan at Nestle. First, we work on farmers, farmer income, and their sustainable livelihoods. But closely related to that, we have to work on social conditions. What's happening in terms of child labor? What's happening in terms of access to clean water? What about women's empowerment? And third, and very much related, all of that, progress in those areas, in farmer income, in social conditions of the communities, lead to better supply, higher quality of supply of cocoa for Nestle.
And if they're earning more money, they're buying more of your product, aren't they? It's sort
well,
of the
we're buying more of their product, exactly.
And then they're turning around and buying. Everybody is getting a lift here.
Yes.
If you're a farmer, there's so many challenges these days. How does Nestle help overcome that challenges to a group of people that often are very poor?
I think the answer is not alone. And one of the things we talk about a great deal, particularly in the area of the cocoa supply chain, is collective action. So Nestle can do a great deal. We can invest in research and development. We can provide new plantlets to our farmers, which is what we do. But we also, when it comes to resolving and making progress on issues like child labor or on women's empowerment in the cocoa supply chain, we work with some of the best and the brightest in the NGO world to help us do audits, to help us do community engagement, train people in the community to think differently.
So put me on the ground then with Nestle and with these groups. How does this process work? I mean, how are you, it's good to talk about it here in New York, but how are you engaging them in these areas?
Well, I think very practically, I'll tell you one example. We have a partnership with the International Federation of the Red Cross. What do we do? With the Red Cross, we provide access to clean water. Concurrently, we work with other partners to build schools. So we're building schools near the cocoa farming communities where we buy product. So it's a web of relationships to benefit the community.
And do you work with other companies? Have other companies come to Nestle and say, hey, how do we do this too?
We absolutely do. We work together with other companies and with the government. So, for example, we're a member of the International Cocoa Initiative, and through that vehicle, we get together other companies, NGOs, and sit down with the government. Because to solve some of the challenges faced by our cocoa farming communities will take the help of many.
You mentioned government. You sell products throughout the world. So you're in some, let's say, unfriendly territories sometimes. How do you work with the government when you need to get to the people on the ground there? How do you get over sometimes very difficult political obstacles?
What we find, let me take a step back. When you talk about creating shared value, you're quite clear about what social issues you're trying to address.
So labor, for example, labor.
So in our case, nutrition, we've prioritized nutrition, water, and rural development, so the issues around the agricultural supply chain. When you're talking about social issues, it's actually far easier to have a constructive dialogue with the government. So even in the area of water, for example, we work very much with other companies, but also with governments to address issues of water stress, where we know that the region has to make really explicit efforts to, for example, change how agricultural practices, reduce water use in the agriculture supply chain. That takes the government to really frame the issue, and we can help.
In this job, anything that has surprised you about issues that you didn't think of that sort of percolate from the bottom up?
Well, I think every day in the area of creating shared value, it's a surprise. The lovely side of the surprise is how businesses work with NGOs, work with multilateral agencies, and go in dialogue with governments. The dialogue is changing, it's becoming more constructive, and it helps us all deliver better social impact. If it's for the farming communities, if it's to address water stress, or to really improve nutrition habits.
The key is a holistic view
Yes.
of the entire community. Janet Voute, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Time now for our business ticker stories making news around the world. A European Union court says Google may have to remove links to content some think is damaging to their reputation. The Court of Justice saying that Google must consider and sometimes comply with individual requests to remove links to articles or websites containing damaging or incorrect personal information. The ruling is seen as a victory for privacy rights over freedom of information, but questions remain about how the law will be implemented across the 28 member EU states. The chief executive of Pfizer found himself in front of the British Parliament Tuesday as ministers asked about a potential buyout of AstraZeneca. CEO Ian Reid was grilled about the merger's viability and whether it would cost jobs in the UK. AstraZeneca says it has not ruled out a merger with Pfizer. Pfizer is expected to raise its asking price again, this time to more than $106 billion. AT&T thinks satellite provider DirecTV could be worth $50 billion. Reports say the nation's second largest wireless carrier could offer around $95 a share for U.S.-based DirecTV and could look to complete the deal within the next few weeks. And analysts say AT&T, which is the largest cable operator, is feeling pressure since Time Warner Cable announced its merger with Comcast. The Swiss are having a referendum that could promise a minimum wage of 22 Swiss francs or $25 an hour. If the proposal becomes law, Switzerland would have the highest minimum wage in the world. The measure has an uphill battle, though, because 65% of the Swiss are opposed to it. In a move modeled after the EU, the African Development Bank announced that it supports visa-free travel. It's part of an ongoing push for African trade integration. Member countries of the World Trade Organization were in Nigeria last week for the World Economic Forum on Africa, discussing if they could one day create a trade zone modeled after the EU. That's where I spoke with Yananav Fred Aga, the Deputy Director General of the WTO. Talk to me a little bit about the WTO's role in Africa right now.
Well, as you are aware, the WTO is the international organization responsible for the negotiation and implementation of international trade rules, which are aimed at providing transparency and predictability to the trade policies and practices of the members. So we are one organization that operates out of Geneva, but Africa remains a very important constituency of the membership. There are about 53 African countries who are members of the WTO, I think, which is about the largest across the geographical regions of the world.
So many different countries, different policies. How much of a challenge has it been to get that transparency you're looking for and getting the nations to work together?
Well, there are two elements here. One is for those African countries that are members of the organization, and then those who are negotiating accession. Because there are some countries like Ethiopia, Liberia, that want to accede to the WTO agreements. So their challenges are different from those that are members. And even amongst those that are members, again, you have it's a relative thing. For some, the sheer technical expertise to effectively participate in the WTO is a challenge.
Can Africa get to the point of an EU type of trade situation?
Well, in WTO, we deal with the whole membership, and we believe in the universality of the membership. So this is a multilateral cooperation arrangement. Why what you do with the EU is mainly bilateral. What Africa does with the EU is bilateral. Whether Africa can, as a region, harmonize its policies to the level of the EU is, I think, something that has come up very clearly from the discussions in this forum. One, the political will, not just to come together, but also to negotiate those arrangements and parameters around which that policy harmonization can take place. So it's up to Africa. Examples of regional cooperation arrangements exist, the EU being one, ASEAN is another. Even the US, as big as it is currently involved in the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement. It even is involved with the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership with Europe. So this is where people are going in terms of cooperation. And I believe African countries, with the will and determination to negotiate and implement mutually beneficial arrangements, can do it.
Ahead, how not to hide from the cops if you're a drug dealer. Our favorite person of the day is next here on Arise Exchange.
Here at Arise America, we want to bring you news from a different perspective, and not just news, but analysis as well. Tell me what it was like growing up gay in Uganda.
I have suffered sexual violence, including that has been planned by my family to heal me from lesbianism.
To have somebody lead your child away in handcuffs is just not something that should be done to a 12-year-old child.
So you call this Victims Advocate Group, this phone number, which is sponsored by the Catholic Church,
Right,
correct?
right.
And what kind of response did you get?
They told me not to make prank calls and it wasn't appropriate and hung up the phone.
My God. Michael Dunn could go away for many decades. Is that enough for you?
No, it's not. The person that killed Jordan Davis has to be found guilty by a court of law in the United States of America.
Mainstream news has covered all of the issues of the world, which are like this, through a very narrow lens. And at Arise News, we do things different. We cover every culture, every angle. Our mission is to go to these places, to these communities, whether they're in Africa, whether they're in Europe, Asia, the United States, the Caribbean. And we're going to find these stories and we're going to tell them to our audience. Stories that they probably never heard of before, and stories that they'll find interesting and engaging.
Time now for our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. Let this be a lesson for all you drug-dealing social media experts out there. Don't take a selfie of you actually selling drugs, because that's what a South Florida man, Taylor Harrison, did. Police say Harrison bragged about his life as a drug dealer on his Facebook page. We all have things to brag about on Facebook, and even posted photos of himself dealing drugs in front of the police. So not to be outdone, the Facebook page of the Martin County Sheriff's Office posted a selfie Harrison took in front of stacks of cash and drugs next to a police car. The sheriff's page has this note: since Taylor was kind enough to share photos of us on his Facebook page, we thought we'd share these photos of Taylor on our Facebook page. Taylor Harrison is now facing drug dealing charges. And so Taylor Harrison, not exactly a social media drug kingpin, is our favorite person of the day. Next, it's not just cute cats making it big on YouTube. How to become a YouTube millionaire when we come back here on Arise Exchange.
Looking at mainstream news stations where only you have a very small minority of people of color being newscasters and actually having prominent roles in the media.
In a newsroom in the United States, maybe 10% of decision makers come from communities of diversity. That's not right.
Well, diversity is important because the more complete the news is, the more accurate a picture you're getting of the world, and the more you can form an accurate opinion of things.
The vision here is not just to tell the main stories of the day, but to tell the news that other organizations don't tell, and tell it in a way that people like me, people that look like me, that look like you, are interested in.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
You may think that YouTube videos are a big time suck at work, but the fact is today they are big business. The online medium has helped launch careers from Canada's Justin Bieber to Korean pop star Psy. For those personalities who rose to become its biggest stars, it's been a career maker, with some YouTubers making millions a year just from uploading videos. No other day job required. With more on how YouTube makes profits for itself and for its users, Alexander Debelov is here to join us. He is the CEO of Viral.com, a video promotion platform that helps style and generate traffic to users' YouTube page. Alex, thanks for joining us from San Francisco.
Thank you for having me on the show.
What stands out about these sort of breakout stars? We've heard of Justin Bieber, but we have gamers, for example, giving advice, people talking about travel issues. There's some outrageous ones, of course, talking about sex. What sort of stands out from the videos that get a few hundred to the ones that get millions each month?
Sure. I think, like, you and I have seen a lot of viral videos, and the first thing we notice is the content is very unique, and we always think, wow, so if I go out and produce a really, really cool video and something that, my friends will share, then it's going to go viral. But the reality is, today, there's over 1 million videos being uploaded to YouTube alone. So even if you go out and create the coolest video, the coolest parody of even Gangnam Style, reality is you won't get that many views. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that once you produce the video and you post it online, you have a really good plan for how you're going to promote it and get it in front of the right influencers and get it in front of the right audience that will begin to share it and really get you that kind of viral spiral.
Yeah, I want to talk about Psy in a moment, because Psy was a very professionally produced video. We are seeing a lot of videos, of course, from people who do nothing more than sit behind their kitchen table and talk. So what is the step that from somebody doing that to now going, quote, viral, which is a phrase that's really, really overused in my opinion? What is sort of that missing link there?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is like what my company specializes in. If you look at a better video called Double Rainbow, which is a video that somebody filmed, it was Jimmy Kimmel who broke it out on his show, and it got in front of millions of views. Psy, same idea. Psy was, a video that was produced in Korea. It was really ridiculous. It was outrageous. But news outlets like CNN, different late night shows, they kind of were the first ones to break it out. And their people who are watching the shows, they really kind of resonated with this video. They went on YouTube, kind of found it, and began to share it. So for anyone producing a video, what's most important is to understand who is the audience that's going to go out and share it. Try to find the influencers of the audience and try to get those influencers involved, maybe even with the creation process, so that when you approach them and you have the ready-to-go product, they don't feel like you're just pitching them to promote this, but they already feel like they're part of the creation process.
And proving that content is king once again. YouTube removes the middleman distributor. If you have a good idea and a good product, you're not having to shop it around to a cable network.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, YouTube has become a very democratized platform where now consumers are selecting the content that's best. There's no middleman. There's no TV network that kind of filters out, the content that's good and bad and decides who's going to be a star and who's not. YouTube and the people decide. And the labels and other kind of TV networks, they're starting to pick up on it. A lot of the major talent agencies are now looking for YouTube celebrities to have them participate in movies, and music labels actually have teams that look for new kind of talent on YouTube, kind of like the next Justin Bieber, the next Psy, to sign on to their labels and get them going, because they realize they already have a fan base, and now getting them involved with traditional media will only help them kind of progress their career.
Alex, does this really work for corporations, though, when corporations sit around a conference room and say, we want to make a so-called viral video? Does that process really work?
So, great question, and I'm glad you asked me this, because that's what a lot of our clients face, right? We go to a lot of big companies, and what we notice is they spend a lot of money. I mean, like hundreds of thousands of dollars producing, really cool viral videos that they upload, and they get like 1,000 people to see them. And so our pitch is always very, very simple: is look, you spent so much money producing this video, but you didn't get anybody to watch it. What I think most people, including big corporations, miss is that YouTube is cluttered. I mean, there's 1 million videos being uploaded every single day. So unless you kind of have a really good plan for distributing this video, or you use a company like Viral that will get you in front of your right audience, then you're not gonna see the effects that you want to see. You're not gonna get millions of views.
I just want to jump in. We're seeing video right now of Grumpy Cat, and you did something, I understand, with Turkish Airlines, and we have about 30 seconds left.
Exactly.
Tell us about Turkish Airlines.
So Absolutely. We worked with a agency out in LA, which produced a video for Kobe versus Messi. It was a really, really great video, but by using our platform and having the video distributed to all the right blogs, all the right Twitter and Facebook pages, the video got 137 million views on YouTube and has been named the most viral brand video of 2013. And that was a combination of great content and a great distribution strategy that was executed by Voute.
Alex Debelov from Viral.com. Thank you so much from San Francisco. Have you back on soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Tomorrow, fierce competition in publishing has led some authors to find creative ways to market their own work. We'll take a look at some of how some are getting you to read their books without you going to the bookstore, even downloading it. Let's take a look at the markets once again. Record day for the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arise Exchange. We'll be back here on Wednesday.